Some viewers might find this disturbing. Your discretion is advised.
So, like I said, I've already watched about half of this. This guy's gonna go on for a long... Alright, so here it is. Here's the video that I will be responding to. I'm gonna try and play it at 1.75 speed. The reason why I am responding to this video is because I have a couple of friends who tend to be on the right wing side of things. And they've sent me a bunch of stuff that they want me to like reply to, and they're honestly like curious of what my opinion on the things that they've sent me is. So I've already watched about half of this video, and I told this friend that I'd watch the other half and give a response to it, and I figured, why not do it for my stream? So here I am. I'm gonna play through this, gonna give you my response, and let's see how it goes. So sad. So he's gonna go through that a lot, and he's gonna harp on that a lot. Truly tragic story. But yeah, I've got a response to it. I'll just say it when we get there.
My birthday. What you doing that day? We can do anything.
She was only 8 years old. Right now it's what, 30 minutes after the 6. She would have been on TikTok dancing in her phone. Just got finished eating. We understand the frustration of racial uproots. We understand. We ain't got nothing to do with it. We innocent. We didn't mean no harm. My baby didn't mean no harm.
Shot and killed a baby. There wasn't one shooter. There were at least 2 shooters. We're going to get through this because we are just that a family.
Some viewers might find this disturbing. Your discretion is advised.
Hi, my wonderful sweet babies. It's Destin Choice, and you're listening to Time Out with Choice. So today's podcast, I've been really contemplating about making this. I literally have anxiety right now because I did not expect to ever make this video, but I feel like I need to make this video more specifically because I feel like the black community is being lied to, and a lot of this stuff is like an agenda, and I'm really terrified that this video might get taken down, but a lot of you guys really need to know the truth. I've been questioning my stance about the Black Lives Matter movement lately because there's a lot of very problematic things that I've been noticing and that I've been researching that a lot of people aren't talking about. Now, let me just be very clear for everyone that's listening right now. Please, for fucking God's sakes, at least watch this video halfway if you're not going to watch the entire thing, but I recommend you watch the video or listen to it in its entirety, because if you don't, you're basically going to miss the entire point of the whole thing, and if you judge it based off the title, but based off what someone told you, or based off something that you heard, you're a fucking idiot. Before I get to that, I want to give you guys a nice breakdown about Black Lives Matter, how they got started, and why a lot of people feel those problematic, and why I've been questioning it lately. The Black Lives Matter Foundation is a global organization in the US, UK, and Canada whose mission is to eradicate white supremacy, build local power to intervene in violence inflicted in black communities. Black Lives Matter purposely initially was created to educate the world about imbalanced circumstances that further lead black people into systematic slave circles. Today, Black Lives Matter is deemed as a massive staple for political and social movements advocating for nonviolent civil disobedience and protests against indecence of cops, police brutality, and racially motivated violence against black people. The Black Lives Matter movement was founded by 3 black scholar women by the names of Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tomedy. Due to the Black Lives Matter movement, it has inflicted a lot of good, and it has evoked a lot of change. I can't say it didn't evoke a lot of change because it has. It has definitely served its purpose. But Black Lives Matter is a little problematic, and let me tell you why. I'm just not gonna do it anymore. Like, I don't want to subscribe to any movement.
Now, he just said Black Lives Matter is a little problematic, and I'm not going to disagree that there are problematic aspects of people who claim to be in the Black Lives Matter movement. The issue is that Black Lives Matter is huge. I mean, like he said at the beginning of this, it's an international movement around the world, and certainly across America, in every major city, there is Black Lives Matter protests after every high-profile killing, for sure, and in some places just going on all the time. So, when you have all of those people coming out under one umbrella of Black Lives Matter, of course you're going to get people who are doing things that they are not supposed to. And some of those things are tragic. Some of those things are reprehensibly awful. And those people should be punished. If there is a way to prove that those people are guilty of those crimes, then those people should be punished for sure. They are not helpful to the movement, and they are not helpful to society. That's the way I see it. But and this is like a point that I'm probably going to have to come to often in this video, to judge the entire movement based off from what some of the members are doing, not the majority of the members, but some of the members are doing, is not really the way you should go about it, in my opinion.
I won't subscribe to any organization because I feel like everything is done with an ulterior motive. No one ever does anything out of the goodness of their hearts. Everything has an ulterior motive.
We talk about this mostly in terms of Black Lives Matter. Black lives really do matter. But the problem is institutional racism in America. That's the overarching problem that still exists. And we should be talking about it and look at it, the legacy of racism in housing and jobs.
It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. Tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they...
A lot of good, and it has evoked a lot of change. I can't say it didn't evoke a lot of change.
I want to rewatch that a bit.
It has definitely served its purpose, but Black Lives Matter is a little problematic, and let me tell you why. I'm just not going to do it anymore. Like, I don't want to subscribe to any movement. I don't want to subscribe to any organization because I feel like everything is done with an ulterior motive. No one ever does anything out of the goodness of their hearts. Everything has an ulterior motive.
Right. We talk about this mostly in terms of Black Lives Matter. Black lives really do matter. But the problem is institutional racism in America. That's the overarching problem that still exists. And we should be talking about it, and you look at it, the legacy of racism in housing and jobs.
It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe.
All right, that's an interesting quote. I want to know exactly what he's talking about in this speech. I have a feeling this speech was recorded during the crime bill discussion. I have a feeling he's not talking about black people in this scenario specifically. I have a feeling he's just talking about violent criminals. Yeah, it's about the crime bill. All right, I think I found one. So I'm gonna go ahead and play what I found. This is hopefully,
if we can keep our minimum mandatory.
This is hopefully the full clip. I haven't actually watched all of it, but I watched a lot of it.
Sentencing.
So this is the clip. This is the moment in the 93 crime bill debate where Joe Biden is talking about the crime bill that you are going to see completely taken out of context and made out like Joe Biden is talking about black people. I am curious to see if he actually says anything about black people in this clip. It's possible there could be context that we're missing in this 12-minute clip that mentions black people, but I have a feeling he's just talking about criminals in general. So let's see.
Provisions, if we can put more police officers on the streets, if we can build more courts, have more prosecutors, if we will commit ourselves to be as outraged about crime as the people who are victims are outraged, I believe we're going to begin to turn the tide, and I believe this bill is going to be an important part of it. I yield for it.
Senator's time has expired. Senator from Delaware.
Madam President, I yield myself 3 minutes. Madam President, it's been a real pleasure to work with my friend from Texas. We most times are on opposite sides of issues. This time we're on the same side, but it is. I realize in this business it's difficult for us to, notwithstanding the fact we're personally cooperating on this bill, for us to dismiss the prospect of some partisanship. Let me set the record straight on this bill. The underlying bill, which is now the Biden-Hatch bill, was the Biden bill. A guy named Biden wrote that bill, and he wrote that bill by going down and sitting down with the President of the United States of America, not with his Attorney General, not with anyone else, with Bill Clinton, President of the United States of America, who between the time he got elected in November until the time he was sworn in, called me at my home on 6 separate occasions, and he unfortunately doesn't need a lot of sleep. Sometimes literally, and I say this on the record, as late as 11:30 at night, to discuss why I wasn't moving quicker on the Biden crime bill from before. I sat with him, not with his Attorney General. He wanted 100,000 policemen. He does not view this as a social issue as opposed to trying to bring peace and security to the streets. As governor of the state of Arkansas, he presided over, as governor, the execution of individuals within the state and the death penalty. He supports the death penalty. He is the fellow who insisted that I bump this up from initially. When I said, where are we going to get the money? He said, well, all I know is I want 100,000 cops. I made that commitment. He had endorsed the Biden crime bill as a candidate when he ran. He is the one who talks about the need for stiffer penalties. So notwithstanding the fact, some of the old Democrats and former presidents who were Democrats before Carter, I suspect, I don't know who we're talking about here, but in the old days, it is true. When Richard Nixon was running for president, Richard Nixon used to talk about law and order, and the Democratic response was law and order with justice, whatever either one of those meant. I never knew. I was running then in 1972. I didn't think Richard Nixon knew what it meant, and I didn't think the opposition knew what it meant. This president is very, very straightforward and simple. He knows there are two basic steps here. One step is you must take back the streets. And you take back the streets by more cops, more prisons, more physical protection for the people. He also understands what my friend from Texas understands, and he doesn't talk a lot about, but he signed on to in this bill. He also understands the need to keep people who are first-time offenders, who are nonviolent offenders, or who are potential time offenders who haven't gotten, I yield myself an additional 3 minutes, who, in fact, are people who are getting themselves into the crime stream for the first time, that they should be diverted from the system. So I hope this crime bill, when it passes, the Biden-Hatch crime bill, as it becomes law, God willing, I hope that we will have ended, once and for all, this notion that is a hangover from the 60s, that somehow Democrats are weak on crime and Democratic presidents are weak on crime and Republicans are tough on crime. The truth is, every major crime bill since 1976 that's come out of this Congress, every minor crime bill, has had the name of the Democratic senator from the state of Delaware, Joe Biden, on that bill, and has had a majority vote of the Democratic members of the United States Senate on the bill. So one of the things I want to do in addition to end crime is end the political carnage that goes on when we talk about crime. Crime is not Democrat or Republican. Making the streets safe is not a Democratic or Republican issue. This is one of those issues I hope this passage of this bill will be taken out of the gridlock category and moved into an emerging consensus. And the consensus is as follows, and I will cease when I finish this statement. The consensus is, A, we must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons.
So we're almost halfway through the clip, and still not one mention of black people. This is starting to get concerning. Was really hoping to see some Joe Biden classic racism here.
So I want to ask, what made them do this? They must be taken off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. The Democratic chairman of the Judiciary Committee, the Democratic president of the United States of America, the Democratic attorney general, the Republican leader of this effort, Senator Hatch, the Republican senator from Texas. We all agree on that. Now, we can find some fringe folks in the study groups on the right wing and left wing, libertarians and left wingers in my party who say, no, that's not what we should do. But politically, that consensus has been arrived at. I acknowledge there was not that consensus in the 60s. There is today. There's a second thing that we all have agreed upon, and that is, unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because there's a second thing that we all have agreed upon, and that is, unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I give myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now, not out of a liberal instinct for love, brother, and humanity, although I think that's a good instinct, but for simple pragmatic reasons. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society. And the truth is, we don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. You're looking at the fellow who was one of the primary architects of the Sentencing Commission. You know what the basic premise of the Sentencing Commission is? I know the presiding officer knows. It was the first time in 80 years we rejected the notion that the condition of sentencing must be related to how long it would take to rehabilitate. I'm the guy that said rehabilitation, when it occurs, we don't understand it and notice it, and even when we notice it and we know it occurs, we don't know why. So you cannot make rehabilitation a condition for release. That's why in our system, the federal system, you serve 85% of your time. I remember when it was going on, when I was making these arguments in the late 70s, they used to call Biden's same time for the same crime provision. It's a shame, but we don't know how to do
that.
But there is a consensus, and I will cease. We must make the streets safer. I don't care why someone is a malefactor in society. I don't care why someone is antisocial. I don't care why they become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior. That's why we do in this bill. We have drug treatment and we have other treatments to try to deal with it. But they are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families. But we would be absolutely stupid as a society if we didn't recognize the condition that nurtured those folks still exist. And we must deal with that. And I think there's a consensus among Republicans in that. Old barbed wire Republican conservatives want to hang them high. Even those folks are saying, hey, we got to deal with the root cause of this. Not one or the other, but separately. And liberal Democrats who used to say, let's look at the sociological underpinnings of why this occurred, and they're now saying, hey, look, we got to take back the streets. We'll make that fight later. So there is a consensus. I hope the remainder of the discussion, as we close out the debate in this bill, we can end that old fight. We can put it behind us. Hopefully we have, the senator from West Virginia said this is a historic moment on this bill, a consensus being reached. I think it is, but I think it's a historic moment for a political reason as well. Hopefully we will end the discussion about whether or not Republicans are Neanderthal and only want to hang them high, and Democrats are wacko liberals and only want to look at the causes. Those days are gone. Evidence of that, the Democratic senator from Delaware and the Republican conservative senator from Utah are united in a Biden-Hatch crime bill that does all the things that I just said. So as one of my relatives who remain nameless would say, God willing, and the creek not rising, hopefully we'll end this kind of debate and decide how we're going to deal with the problem from here on. I reserve the balance of my time.
All right, well, there you go. There you have it. Some of the things that he said in that were, for sure, problematic. The I don't care about why you're here, why you're doing the things you're doing, that doesn't matter to me. That kind of stuff is kind of a little bit cringe, but at the same time, he did bring it back around at the end and talked about how, like, you gotta take back the streets now, and then we'll deal with the social issues later, which probably wasn't a unpopular opinion at the time amongst a lot of people, because apparently in the 90s, crime was pretty high. It was a pretty big problem. So he didn't even go without recognizing the social underpinnings to crime in that video. And this video, making it out like he's talking about black people when he's talking about that, is kind of weird to me. For sure, the 93 crime bill had a huge toll on black Americans. Many of the tough on crime bills that certain politicians have put forward has been directly targeted towards black people. The war on drugs was a tough on crime initiative that was directly targeted to black people, but that wasn't a Joe Biden thing. That wasn't a Democrat thing. That was a Republican thing. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. Anyways, this whole entire section with this clip has totally been debunked just now. The fact that he says this before, he can both have the thoughts that he had on that train and have the thoughts that he just expressed in Congress at the same time and still be consistent. You can think in 93 that you need to, quote, take back the streets, and think that black people have socioeconomic issues that are plaguing their communities at the same time. Like, those are not two thoughts that are contradictory to each other. So I'm gonna continue this video.
Shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my...
Again, not talking about black people here.
Sons. Tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision.
This black, what do you mean black bastards? He's not talking about black people. And I find it so funny that the fact that he's talking about criminals and the fact that he's talking about people who are born out of wedlock and without parents, without supervision, you just automatically assume he's talking about black people. That's crazy in my mind. My mind went to criminals in general. Not every criminal in America is black. I don't know if this is a new news to you, but they're not.
Without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes. We should focus on them now. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now.
Black Lives Matter has honestly been hijacked.
We can't afford to give him a chance. He talked about the socio-economic changes that need to happen in America to prevent people from becoming criminals at the end of that speech, which you completely cut out.
Hijacked by many race hustlers, the media, liars, frauds, and has been hijacked by politicians. Black Lives Matter isn't what it used to be. Everyone knows Black Lives Matter first started when the whole situation regarding George Zimmerman getting acquitted for a secure back in 2013. Black Lives Matter is completely counterproductive. It's completely a joke, in my personal opinion. It's a joke. It's a joke, and let me tell you why. It's counterproductive because black people are being used as an agenda, and I'm not fucking here for it, and it makes me very upset that I'm finding all this out. Let me tell you why. So if you guys didn't know,
Which agenda? Which agenda is Black Lives Matter being used for? You can tell me why, but tell me which agenda.
Black Lives Matter is kind of known for shit like this.
Yes, and the media companies that harp on those things, that's an anti-BLM agenda. Some of them are just doing it because it sells. Because it's what people tune into, it's what people click on. Some of them are doing it specifically to make Black Lives Matter look bad. Again, this isn't the majority of Black Lives Matter. The majority of people who are a part of Black Lives Matter denounces this kind of behavior. These are just people who are using Black Lives Matter as an opportunity to loot, steal, and create chaos.
And although Black Lives Matter does have its positive, peaceful protesters who mean no harm and don't want no type of violence, and I'm sure some of you guys watching this are part of the movement and have probably done nothing but be peaceful, but let's just be real here. I don't like the fact that it's been hijacked by a whole bunch of organizations, a whole bunch of people like George Soros, and a whole bunch of billionaires and politicians who condone looting and rioting.
What does George Soros have to do with Hold on, let's look this up. What does George Soros have to do with Black Lives Matter? I'm curious. It might be something there. Reuters, one of the best, I believe it's Reuters, one of the best, most unbiased online news organizations have an article about this. Soros does not own Antifa, Black Lives Matter. George Soros does not own Antifa, Black Lives spokesperson of the foundation. We proudly support organizations. Soros did not pay for protesters after Trump's election. I really wish I knew what his specific claims about George Soros was. But as far as I can see right now, let's bring all this back. It does not look like George Soros has anything to do with Black Lives Matter besides just, general support. And without specific claims, it's really hard for me to actually debunk anything that he says. But there's a lot of false claims about George Soros out there. In general, I guarantee you there's a lot of false claims about him when it comes to Black Lives Matters. It's just the way it is.
So I do think it's a little bit fucked up that all these politicians like Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, all these politicians and celebrities like Ariana Grande, Nicki Minaj, 6ix9ine, Lizzo, The Weeknd, Common, all these celebrities were creating donations and GoFundMes and whole foundations to bail out people who were actually starting shit. Now, my first issue with people who were...
Okay, so the bailouts. Hold on. Let me fact check myself just to make sure. So the only thing I can find, on this is... apparently there was one fund called the Freedom Fund, Minnesota Freedom Fund bails, who bailed out some violent criminals. But in general, this money is meant to bail out protesters who are arrested for things like being out after curfew and bullshit crimes involved with the protests. They're not generally going to violent criminals. That's just not a thing that I can find any information on actually happening on a large scale. The actual why those that fund was being used for violent criminals, I don't know. It could have been a mistake. It could have been bad policy. I really don't know. Couldn't tell you. No, I don't care enough about it to really dig too deep into it.
Attaching Black Lives Matter to bailouts with the fact that, let's be very clear, if you're not committing a crime and you're protesting peacefully and you mean no harm and you get arrested, your charge is going to get dropped, okay?
That's not always true. Sometimes the charges are legit charges, but it's still bullshit. Being out past curfew, being on the streets without a permit, stuff like that, still bullshit. I think those people should be bailed out. They shouldn't have to spend time in jail. They're protesting.
Because you ain't do nothing wrong. But if you actually went out there starting shit, peeing on shit, breaking shit, harassing people, like literally I saw a whole woman throw a glass bottle at cops. If you're out here starting shit and making
You saw a woman throw a glass bottle at cops. Like I said, this movement is huge. The protests are huge. They're all over America and worldwide. Yes, you're going to see people do bad things. That's just the way it's going to be. But the mass majority of the protests, Times had the number at over 80%, and there was another source, I think it was MSNBC or someone, I forgot who it was, had it over 90% of the protests are peaceful.
the whole movement look bad, why the fuck are we creating a whole GoFundMe and a whole foundation funded by celebrities to bail out criminals who are actually starting shit and making this whole movement look bad?
They're not. They're using the funds to bail out people who are locked up for bullshit reasons.
Please
in general.
Explain to me how that makes sense, how we're bailing out people all together when a big chunk of those people who went to jail were actually throwing glass or actually breaking shit. Explain to me how that makes any sense. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It seems like it's an agenda. It seems like politicians and celebrities are purposely doing this because they wanted more chaos and mayhem. They wanted to bail out these criminals and put them right back on the streets so they can keep fucking shit up, making the movement look worse. So that was like my first strike with Black Lives Matter. My second strike with Black Lives Matter was recently. If you guys didn't know, a Black Lives Matter protester actually killed somebody. Yes, a Black Lives Matter protester legit killed an 8-year-old girl. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why you guys didn't hear about this. I know a lot of you guys got that face like, what? What do you mean? Yes, they literally killed an innocent young black queen who did nothing wrong. So if you guys didn't hear about Sequoia Turner is an 8-year-old girl who was basically murdered in the midst of a protest that was done for Rayshard Brooks. If y'all didn't know, Rayshard Brooks was a 27-year-old black man who was basically drinking outside of a Wendy's, loitering. Wendy's called the police on him because they felt he was a very suspicious looking dude who was drinking, loitering around, and they felt he was being a liability to the establishment and a liability to himself. So they called the police. The police went up to him. The police brutalized him. And basically, once they realized he was drunk, they tried to arrest him. He resisted arrest. As he was resisting arrest, he was beating the fuck out of the officers, kicking their asses and everything. He was able to shake away after they were trying to arrest him. After they tried to arrest him, he then grabbed the cop's taser, ran away, and aimed a taser at the cop.
Officers attempted to arrest Mr. Brooks. He tussled.
Okay, so I don't know if he's trying to make it out like that guy should have been shot. I forgot what the name was. Mr. Brooks. I don't think that for a person with a taser presents running away with a taser that's already been discharged. It was discharged when he was shot. Presents a big enough threat to the police to justify being shot. Now, maybe if they shot him the first time he tried to tase them, maybe there can be an argument there. But there were apparently 2 cops there. So the whole he could have grabbed my gun thing is, if he tased me thing, is kind of null, because you should be able to depend on your partner to protect you from that happening. That was my take on that whole situation. It happened a while ago, so.
With the officers and was able to take the taser from one of the arresting officers. As Mr. Brooks ran away, he turned over his shoulder and appears to fire the taser at one of the officers. The officer in turn shot Mr. Brooks with his service weapon.
He shot Brooks with his service weapon after Brooks missed him with the taser and tried to run away.
Yeah, the scene is
Kyle Rittenhouse showed more discipline with the people that he shot than this cop who is supposed to be trained to show discipline in his use of force.
Largely unchanged over the past couple of hours or so.
No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! No.
Now,
it's so funny that the clips that he has of those protests are all peaceful protesters. How crazy is that?
I thought that was a little bit problematic, but that's not the whole gist of the story. To make a long story short, as people were burning down the Wendy's and were upset at the fact that people were legit like blaming Wendy's for calling the police, if you guys don't know, a woman by the name of Charmaine Turner was with her daughter. They had just returned from their 4th of July weekend in the midst of the whole week within this riot. They had just returned from 4th of July weekend, and to make a long story short, as they were driving, they were trying to get through the protesters, but a lot of the protesters put illegal barricades. Yes, protesters put legit illegal barricades to block cars from coming because they didn't want the cars to break up their line, because everyone knows that when you're protesting, when cars get through, everybody has to keep breaking up. So the protesters put illegal barricades there to block the cars from getting through and interrupting the protest. Now, as this woman right here, Charmaine Turner, was with her 8-year-old daughter who's in the 3rd grade. She didn't know why the barricades were there. She had a feeling it was for the protest. So this is what she did. She tried to drive through them, but they were blocking her. And the protesters assumed that she was trying to hit them with her car. She was actually trying to do a U-turn in her Cherokee SUV, actually trying to drive and do a U-turn. One of the protesters thought that she was trying to hit them. So the protester jumped out the way, pulled out a gun, and started blasting the car with an 8-year-old in the back seat.
So I'm going to pretty much skip the rest of the story. If you want to know more about it, I would recommend you looking it up. I looked up a little bit of it. There's no defense for what those protesters did. I'm not going to try and defend them. They should be put in jail. He goes on to talk about how none of the protesters around the people who shot into that car are like giving them up to the police. But my response to that is, how many of those protesters do you think actually know who those people that shot at the Cherokee were? Most likely, if there was a gunshot in the crowd, people weren't like looking at the people who shot through the car to try and get a good identification of who they were. Most likely they had masks on, because a lot of these BLM protesters wear masks due to COVID. But it's not like, if you're going to hear a gunshot, you're not going to like look at the person shooting. You're going to try and get out of there. Would be my guess on how things went down when that little girl was shot. That would be why people aren't turning in the shooters. There was one guy that turned himself in, but isn't turning in the shooters. But I think that I read that he doesn't know, or he's claiming he doesn't know who the shooters are. I don't know. They need to be in jail. Anyone with information needs to turn them in. I seriously doubt anybody actually has any information except for these shooters themselves. But that's my gist on that story. It doesn't delegitimize the movement, though. It's tragic. It shouldn't have happened. The people need to be punished. But that does not mean that Black Lives Matter needs to end as a movement because of it. The violence needs to stop. I would agree with that. But the majority of the protests are not violent.
In the midst of a Black Lives Matter protest. And what's crazy is, you know what's been really interesting? Her killers aren't even found yet. No one knows who killed her. They did recently arrest a suspect, but this was back in July. So there's no lead. No one knows who shot her. But this is a Black Lives Matter protest. There was over like 50 people there, and guess what? They keep urging the public to say something, to snitch, to say, hey, 15. And the media was painting him as like he was like this white supremacist and he was evil. He was going around trying to kill black.
So yeah, he was about to go on about how the authorities are trying to get people to turn in the shooters and nobody's turning them in. He's making it act like the fact that nobody's turning them in is like a blemish on Black Lives Matter. But like I said, people probably don't even know who they are.
Denouncing them. I find it interesting how we'll say, well, Trump is not condemning them, so he must be racist. But why doesn't Black Lives Matter, the official Twitter account, queens and black kings and black women this and black men that, and let's stand together? None of them reported on it. The only people that reported on it was local Atlanta news. That's it. So if you're from Atlanta, you probably heard about this, but you didn't hear about this from mainstream news because it doesn't align with their agenda. A little 8-year-old black girl died in the midst of a Black Lives Matter.
The mainstream news didn't report on one person getting shot at a protest because they probably didn't feel like it was national newsworthy. It's kind of like that little boy who got shot by the black man, Cannon Hennett. That was big news on the right-wing alternative media. But one of the things that they were talking about was, why isn't mainstream news covering this? Why isn't mainstream news covering this? It's probably because at the time, mainstream media was covering the actual shooting of by a cop. The man, I forgot what his name was, whoever got shot to start the riots in the first place in that town. And they just didn't feel like it would be national newsworthy that somebody got shot. As tragic as it is, because this might be news to some people on here, and this is very sad, but little kids die all the time. It sucks. A lot of those deaths aren't of natural causes. A lot of them are due to neglect, abuse, or just straight out being murdered. It happens all of the time. If national news tries to cover every single time a little kid dies, that would be all they would cover. You could make the argument that this girl being shot by a Black Lives Matter protester makes it a little bit newsworthy, a little bit more newsworthy, which I would agree. But I don't think that the news organizations are without their share of... I think they got plenty of violent protest content. they play it constantly.
Protest, but they know that if they report on it, people gonna stop protesting. They want people to go out there, they want people to loot and burn shit up, and that's what I'm not for at all. This shit really pissed me off. This whole story literally broke my heart, and I damn near cried. I don't even cry, but that whole thing made me cry. Y'all see this mother? She's damaged. Can you imagine if, I'm sure some of y'all listening to this got 8-year-old cousins, nephews, cousins, little brothers and sisters. How would y'all feel if you was in her position? You'd be distraught. You'd be damaged. I can imagine what she's going through. She got like 2 other kids, and now she got to literally tell her, she had to explain to her other young children why their sister is not coming home anymore because she literally died in the middle of a Black Lives Matter protest. It don't make no sense. I don't want to be that person that brings up black on black crime, but really, an 8-year-old girl that ain't do nothing wrong. She wasn't no gangbanger. She wasn't none of that. She came from a 2-parent black family, happy, positive black family, successful black family that owned a home and everything. And she dies in the middle of this protest. And of course, there's gonna be the people who are gonna be like, well, that's not a depiction of Black Lives Matter. I find it funny how people crucify back to that. So Jacob Blake, in the midst of the whole protesting in Milwaukee, everyone knows Milwaukee's a very dangerous area. Everyone knows this. Anyone that lives in Milwaukee who's ever heard of Milwaukee, it's dangerous, awful. So to make a long story short, white dude was basically walking around with AR-15, and the media was painting him as like he was like this white supremacist and he was evil and he was going around trying to kill black people with AR-15s and guns and he's a mass shooter. Tell me why I was so irritated when I was resurfacing, because I actually read up and
I do not know how many news organizations were looking at Kyle Rittenhouse and making him out to be like a white supremacist, B, mass shooter. What was the coverage like for Kyle Rittenhouse? Alright, so let's just look at some of the headlines for the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. I typed in CNN because CNN is like the most left-leaning, the most biased, I think, of the major news networks. But here's what I got. Oh, I didn't type in CNN properly. August 27th. Who is Kyle Rittenhouse? Teen accused of deadly shooting. Suspect idolized the police. That's true. He did idolize the police. Kyle Rittenhouse and the sheepdog mentality. Rittenhouse appears to live a fantasy world where police and car dealerships are more endangered than unarmed black men's, where this one's a little bit, yeah, the Atlantic has a pretty inflammatory headline. Still not saying that he's like a mass shooter or that he's a white supremacist. Yeah, race, okay. August 28th. Notice shooting, suspect calls a friend to say he killed somebody, police say, and then shot 2 others. How the U.S. media covered Kyle Rittenhouse. This is a Guardian article. So the worst thing that I see the Guardian saying that people are calling him is a terrorist, which is like, okay, that's weird. That's weird as fuck. I didn't see any mainstream media calling him a terrorist. There is, who is Ayanna Pressley? Is that a senator? She's a U.S. House candidate. Ugh. Alright, so there's this tweet. A 17-year-old white supremacist domestic terrorist drove across state lines armed with AR-15. He shot and killed 2 people who had assembled to affirm the value, dignity, and worth of black lives. Fix your damn headlines. That's really cringe. I don't think that the media was portraying him in this way, but I can definitely see like dumbass candidates for government offices and maybe really fringe lefty media pundits on alternative media. The Twitterverse, I could definitely see the Twitterverse calling him a terrorist and white supremacist and such. I don't think that the mainstream media really did that, and I'm no fan of the mainstream media, but I don't see any evidence of that being a thing that they were engaging in at the time. I didn't search very hard for it. If you have any evidence of that, I would love to see
research on it before it like blew up and exploded. That was not true at all. This shooter right here is not true. He wasn't a white supremacist. Did he shoot black people? Did he shoot a white person? Yes, he shot like 3 people. He did shoot people. But here's the interview that the media is not showing you.
These police officers could have done instead of firing at least 7 bullets.
Meanwhile, authorities have arrested an Illinois teenager after 2 people
were shot and killed during protests the day
earlier. 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse faces a first-degree intentional homicide charge. His online footprint appears to show a strong support for law enforcement. It's not clear whether he was part of any organized group, but before the shooting, he explained why he was armed.
Our job is to protect this business, but there's somebody hurt. I'm running into harm's way. That's why I'm my resident. I protect myself, obviously.
written confrontation between Rosenbaum and Kyle in the first place. Twitter user Drew Hernandez tweeted, "A good Samaritan put out a trash can fire that rioters were about to push into police squad cars. Rioters were then triggered by it and went after the gas station in retaliation. From what I understand, the person with the fire extinguisher was Kyle." It's hard to tell if that's Kyle in that video, but in another live stream from Facebook, you can clearly see Kyle run by the camera at the same gas station holding a fire extinguisher.
Not to mention, these looters actually ran up on him. He was trying to tell them to go away and stop trying to loot his business that he was protecting. And
okay, so, all right, here's the updated Kyle Rittenhouse hot take that I have. Well, it's not really a hot take. So Kyle Rittenhouse went there. He did some good things. Apparently, he was giving medical assistance to people who needed it, trying to put out fires that the looters, that the rioters were setting. And he went there because a guy who owned a car dealership asked a Facebook militia group, or I don't know if it was a militia group or if it was like a Blue Lives Matter type group, for help protecting his business from the rioters. Why he couldn't do it, I don't know. Why he couldn't hire professionals, I guess maybe he doesn't have the money to. But he went onto a group of ordinary, it's full of ordinary citizens, to ask for help protecting his business. And some people answered the call. One of them being Kyle Rittenhouse, a 17-year-old boy from across the state. He apparently only lives about 30 minutes away. He works about 15 minutes away at a as a lifeguard at one of the local pools, I suppose it was. So a lot of people make the claim that he's protecting his community. My thing is that if we are at a point in America to where we need people to go on the streets armed with weapons in order to protect property because of mass riots, then we have some gigantic ass problems in America, much bigger than Kyle Rittenhouse himself. I don't think that we are at a point in America to where we need people, ordinary citizens, to be armed on the street to protect property. If that was his dealership, then maybe there could be some justification for it. Yes, there are businesses being burned. Small businesses, unjustifiably being burnt. There's no justification for it. For those business owners, it sucks. It really, really sucks. Insurance companies are not very good at paying out in a timely manner for these businesses to get back on their feet. It would suck so much to be one of those business owners who have their businesses burned. But if I were to have a choice between living in a world where some businesses, a handful of small businesses, are going to get destroyed and it's going to be a long time before they get back on their feet because of how our insurance industry is, and a world where every time there's going to be a Black Lives Matter protest breakout, whether it's violent or not, there's going to be militiamen armed at every business's door to prevent them from being burnt, thus making the chances that something awful is going to happen more likely. Something awful like that little girl who got shot by a Black Lives Matter protest, except this time it's a militiaman who's shooting a rioter trying to burn a business, but missing and hitting a child or an innocent bystander of any kind. I think I would choose the world where these small business owners who just so happen to be inside of a high tense area where there are riots have a chance of having their businesses destroyed than the world where every time that there's a protest, we're going to end up with militiamen trying to protect the businesses with guns. It's just a safer world. The first world's a safer world. Kyle Rittenhouse specifically, he showed great restraint in his use of force. I think that what he did was purely self-defense. But he shouldn't have been there in the first place. None of those militiamen should have been there. If I had a choice between that dumpster continue burning, or even that car dealership burning down, and Kyle Rittenhouse being there to and ending up having to shoot 3 people, I would choose the car dealership burning down any day, and the dumpster getting set on fire. I know that the business owner probably wouldn't choose that, but I would, because in a world where that kind of action, reckless action, the action of being in a place like that with a gun in order to protect somebody else's property, in a world where that's okay, that world turns into a world where every single protest can become potentially deadly to a much greater extent than it already is. That's my 2 cents on it. My opinion on this is constantly changing though as I hear more arguments. So I believe Kyle Rittenhouse was acting in self-defense, but he shouldn't have been there in the first place. I think morally he shouldn't have been there in the first place. I believe that people do have the right to protect their communities to a certain extent, but I think that the institutions in America should be strong enough to withstand riots, the aftermath of riots and such. So the armed militiamen protecting property shouldn't be necessary.
And they ran up on him. That's why he actually was defending a business. He literally was defending a business from looters. That's why he had a gun. Did he need that big ass gun? Absolutely not. But he was defending a business from looters. But that's not the agenda that Black Lives Matter wants you to follow. They want to make sure that you hate white people as much as possible. They want to make sure that you don't like white people. They want to make sure that we stir a divide because they want to make sure that they circulate a good amount of votes.
That's just not true. There's no evidence of that. If you look at most of these Black Lives Matter protests, like 50% of them are white or just not black. What's he saying? Black Lives Matter doesn't want you to hate white people. They want you to treat black people the same way you treat white people, with the same privileges.
I'm literally so annoyed with this whole movement at this point because it's become so counterproductive, and a young black girl literally just died in the midst of all this, and we got people literally accusing this white dude as a white supremacist when all he was doing was protecting a business from looters. Like, it makes no sense. As he was waving the gun around people, they ran up on him, beat the fuck out of him, kicked him, and he shot them in self.
Hey, listen to what the words he says as he was waving a gun around. Okay, I don't think that he was brandishing his gun like that, but if he was, he's threatening protesters if he's waving the gun around. Like, they have a right to try and run up on him and it's stupid for them to. From a preservation of life stance, it would be stupid for them to. But if they did run up on him and try to attack him if he was waving a gun around, that in itself would be self-defense. What is he saying?
Defense, because they ran up on him. Like, who runs up on a person with a gun? It makes no sense. I also want to talk about the fact,
who runs up on a person with a gun? What if that person was just shooting into crowds of people and you have a chance to come up behind them, some action movie style? Like, you're going to run up, like, there may be a situation where running up on a person with a gun could save lives. Cops run up on people with guns. They're trained to. I would expect a cop to. I wouldn't expect protesters to in most situations. But there are situations where you could run up on somebody with a gun and it being justified. If that person is waving a gun around in the middle of a riot, then maybe he needs to be run up on. That's just my 2 cents.
That Black Lives Matter has been hijacked by people on Twitter who literally read a headline.
Oh gosh, I don't think I can defend people on Twitter though. I can't even defend a U.S. representative, somebody who's running for a U.S. representative, probably on the Democratic side, on Twitter, So this is going to be interesting. I don't think I've made it this far the first time I watched this.
They screenshot it, they repost it, and everybody goes around believing it. I find it really interesting how a lot of people don't do research, especially people on Twitter. It's embarrassing if you can literally sit up here and say you get your news from Twitter and you don't read the articles. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people on Twitter literally retweet and repost articles without actually reading
Says the guy who posted a partial video of Joe Biden talking about criminals and trying to make it out like he was talking about black people. Okay.
the whole thing. A lot of the stuff you see on Twitter is lies. One thing I want to mention about Black Lives Matter is, if a lot of you guys didn't know, Black Lives Matter was, the purpose of it is to basically bring black people together and have serious conversations, vigorous conversations, right? Well, let me throw this conversation at y'all. Did you guys know that 90% of black people vote Democrat or are registered Democrats, right? 90% of black people are registered Democrats in America. Very interesting, right? Did you know that Black Lives Matter collects a fuck ton of donations, and a big portion of those donations have actually went to Democratic politician campaigns? Did you know that?
Yes, because between a Democratic candidate and a Republican candidate, the Democratic candidate is going to most likely represent the best interest of black people. I need to really do some research on this so I can come up with very specific examples of this with sources and such. But one example that I can give to you is that most of the time when polling places are closed by a Republican governor, it is usually in black communities. That's so weird, isn't it? Most of the time when a Republican governing body gerrymanders a district, it usually disenfranchises black people and other people of color. That's so weird, isn't it? I think it was North Carolina or South Carolina, one of those two, where they pretty much all but admitted that they were gerrymandering based off of racial lines. I'm gonna do more research, and I'll probably do a video on that. Why black people, why Democrats are better for the black community than Republicans. But yeah, it's not weird that most Black Lives Matter is raising money for Democratic candidates. It's because they're going to better represent the needs of the black community. A lot of Republicans don't even believe in systematic racism. They think that because there is no laws on the books that is inherently racist, that systematic racism doesn't exist. I guarantee you Donald Trump doesn't believe in systematic racism. Most Republicans do not believe that socioeconomic situations in the past affect people of the future. They believe that we live in a true meritocracy, to where if you work hard and you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to make it in America, when that's just not true. We are not a meritocracy. And if that was true, what does that say about their beliefs in the black community, who usually are doing worse off than white people? If we were in a true meritocracy like the Republican Party believes, and black people are doing worse than white people, then that would make them inherently worse, right? But we both know that's not the case. Black people aren't inherently worse than white people. They are doing worse off overall than the white people are, because of the racism of the past and the implicit racism that we see in the present, that Republicans do not believe in. That is why Black Lives Matter is donating to Democratic candidates. Because at least they pretend to believe in all that stuff I just said. And at least you can hold them accountable to their word in a primary election if they fail to do anything about it. With a Republican candidate, they don't even pretend to believe in those things. And they don't need to get elected in their primaries.
So I recently did some research, and I found out that if you go to Black Lives Matter and you see that little sign right here that says donate, if you go to Black Lives Matter and try to donate a certain amount of money to the cause and help eradicate white supremacy and help get rid of racism, did you know that a lot of that money goes to an organization called Act Blue? Literally, once you click donate, you can check for yourself if you don't believe me. Once you click on donate, the Act Blue sign pops up in the tab, right? Y'all see this? It pops up in the tab. As it pops up in the tab, Act Blue, their little logo, it immediately takes you to a site where it tells you to donate, how much you want to donate. It can help. They tell you, oh, you can help the cause, you can help this, you can help that. Tell me why. I did my research and I tried to find out where that money went. A good chunk of that money actually goes to Democratic campaigns. Like, did you know Bernie Sanders made $100 million off of Black Lives Matter donations? politicians, because Act Blue, because let's be very clear, Black Lives Matter tried to debunk this. They tried to quote unquote debunk this. Black Lives Matter doesn't directly give the funds to Democrats. It's Act Blue. The money goes to Act Blue, and Act Blue choose to give the money to Democrats. That's what they do. Isn't it interesting how all these politicians are white politicians who are Democrats? Isn't that very interesting? You can even go on the Wikipedia page for Act Blue, and it'll tell you very vividly on their Wikipedia page that they're very open to Democrats.
Things that, and you can see the Wikipedia page, right? They're essentially a card processing resource. And if you do a little bit of digging and you look at the Candace Owens video that she released, what she probably purposefully moves out of the picture as she shows you the video of all the donations that have been provided.
Why are they open to Republicans? Why are they just open to Democrats? Why are they open to other political parties?
They're not open to Republicans because Republicans do not represent the interest of black people. It's simple. They try and actively disenfranchise black people.
Very interesting. And also,
why aren't they now he asked, why aren't they open to other parties? We live in and this is so unfortunate, and I'm sure I've said this in other videos, we live in a two-party system. It sucks so much that we live in a two-party system. They can donate to the Green Party, which probably believes in some of the things that I mentioned earlier much more than the Democratic Party would. And if like someone like the Green Party was in office, would probably actually try and right those wrongs much more than the Democratic Party would. But unfortunately, they have no chance of winning, period. It's just the way it is. Therefore, any funds that go to them is just kind of a waste. The most effective way to spend those funds is to give to Democratic candidates. Yeah.
Seems like it's some type of agenda. Why the fuck do Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, all these other white politicians like Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, why do all these politicians who had campaigned as Democrats this literally last year, why do they make hundreds of millions off of donations? How does that make any sense? Like, it's just like, but isn't it interesting how they made over $1 billion in the past 5 years, but none of that money has touched black neighborhoods? You know what you do when you fund these politicians' campaigns? You're paying for their hotels, you're paying for their flights, you're paying for their teams, their PR.
I am all for donating to black neighborhoods and helping the black community out in that way, but the most effective way to help out black communities is to get politicians who are going to pass policies that is going to help out black communities. Those policies will happen year after year. You can inject money into black communities year after year through the government rather than a one-time donation here and there. It can happen on a much larger scale if the federal government gets involved.
Their press, you're paying for this, you're paying for that, you're paying for their suits, you're paying for their private planes. That's what you're paying for when you fund somebody's campaign. But why doesn't that money go in our community? We can collectively come together, or white liberals can collectively come together and donate to Black Lives Matter. But why don't we donate that money to Flint, Michigan to help them get cleaner water? Why don't we put that money towards places in Philly? Like, Philly is like really, really fucked up.
In order to get Flint, Michigan cleaner water, you have to get a person in office. And I'm not sure. I think Flint did have a governor in Michigan, I think. Which I'm not going to defend Democrats. They're better than Republicans because Republicans don't believe in infrastructure spending at all. I think that Trump postured on infrastructure spending, but I don't think he did it. He prove me wrong. I might be wrong. Prove me wrong if I am. But most Republicans are fiscally conservative, which means they're not going to spend government funds on doing things like getting Flint, Michigan clean water. Democrats are much more likely to do that. I'm not saying they are going to do it, but again, unfortunately, we live in a two-party system, and Democrats are much more likely to approve the infrastructure spending needed to get someplace like Flint, Michigan, cleaner water. They are much more likely to approve of funds to be injected into black communities in order to help black businesses, in order to help black students, in order to help people in black communities who need it in whatever way they need it.
Up right now because a lot of Black Lives Matter anarchists went around burning shit up, ran around fucking shit up. They fucked Philly up. Even in Houston, like a big chunk of Houston got fucked up due to like the protest that was going on. So you mean to tell me that all these Democrats collect hundreds of millions of dollars off of all these people who are donating for black issues and to eradicate white supremacy just for it to go in the pockets of Democratic campaigns? That don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. This is literally documented proof. Black Lives Matter can't even deny this. All they can say is, well, we don't give the money to Act Blue. That's literally all they can say. Act Blue purposely gives the money to them. Act Blue, vote blue. You get it? Blue is a symbol for Democrats. You see where I'm coming from here? Like the movement's just been hijacked. It's corrupt. Another thing about Black Lives Matter, a lot of you guys didn't know, is Black Lives Matter actually has a lot of goals. Their goals is to eliminate things like cisgender privilege, which if y'all didn't know, cisgender is the opposite of transgender. And
All right, I'm gonna have to wait. Wait, is he saying they're trying to eliminate cisgender privilege?
the symbol for Democrats. You see where I'm coming from here? Like the movement's just been hijacked. It's corrupt. Another thing about Black Lives Matter, a lot of you guys didn't know, is Black Lives Matter actually has a lot of goals. Their goals is to eliminate things like cisgender privilege, which if y'all didn't know, cisgender is the opposite of transgender. And cisgender privilege is basically what they want to dismantle because they want everybody to be seen as one, especially if you're a person of color. And to make a long story short, they feel as though the world is run by patriarchy, which it is, and they feel like the world's run by misogyny, which it is. Now, one thing that's very interesting about the Black Lives Matter site is one of their goals is to disrupt the nuclear family.
Okay, what is wrong with trying to eliminate cisgender privilege? As long as you're not trying to bring cisgender people down to being discriminated in the same way that transgender people are, which I wouldn't see how you'd be able to do that. That just seems like a stupid thing that would be rather impossible in society. What is wrong with trying to... All right, when you say eliminate cisgender privilege, the only way you can do that is by giving transgenders equality the same way that cisgender in society, the same way that cisgenders have. That's the only way you can do that. What is wrong with that? There is not a single thing wrong with that. I don't... What? Are you transphobic? I don't know this person personally. This is just a video that was sent to me from a friend. But are you transphobic? Do you not want cisgender people to have equal rights? Do you not want transgender people to be treated equally in society?
Bitch, when I found that shit out, I damn near threw my...
He says that they want to disrupt the nuclear family. The nuclear family is a family of a dad, a mom, and kids. That is what the nuclear family is. They're not saying, hey, I want to get rid of people who have a dad and a mom and kids. They're saying that they want a much more queer affirming network. They're saying that they want communities to come together to help take care of one another. Because we have a situation in America right now where there are a lot of families out there. There are single parent households. This is true in all demographics, but this is very true in the black community. There is nothing wrong with wanting to come together as a community to help people who are not your typical nuclear family, especially single parent households, meet the needs that they have in order to be successful in life. There's nothing wrong with that. The nuclear family structure is already disrupted. We already have a problem with single parent households. And when they say they want to disrupt the nuclear family, this isn't like, oh, like I said, this isn't we're going to take families that are a dad, a mom, and kids and just disrupt them. They are trying to normalize queer families. 2 moms, kids, 2 dads, kids, maybe polygamous relationships and kids, I don't know. And they want the communities to come together and try and help take care of each other. This would be specifically helpful for single family households. I don't see anything wrong with this. Maybe he comes up with something else that's going to be awful, this awful bombshell, but we'll see.
Going across the room. If y'all didn't know what a nuclear family is, well, before I even tell you what that is, here's what their site says verbatim. So this is what their site says. Their site said that they want to dismantle the nuclear family, but they want to dismantle
They want to, he says verbatim. Does he not know what the word verbatim mean? We want to disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement. That means that they want to normalize something that's not just the nuclear family. They're just disrupting the requirement for the nuclear family structure. They're not destroying the nuclear family. They're just trying to normalize something else.
To the westernized version of the nuclear family. So basically, if you don't know what a nuclear family is, well, if you know what Western is, Western means anything white. So Western means
Western means anything white. Okay. You don't have to be white to be a part of Western culture. What kind of stupid ass shit is that? Western culture isn't just white people. America is considered to be a Western culture. We have people who contribute to our culture who are not white, many of them. Black culture is one of the most imported, one of the most copied cultures of all of them. Western culture would be nothing without black culture. What the hell is this person talking about? He does not know what he's talking about. I'm sorry. I'm being rude. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be mean. I can't expect everyone. Okay, I'm done.
Western culture, whitewash, white this, white that, anything that's deemed as white, right? So you want to dismantle the westernized version of the nuclear family. The nuclear family is basically a family where it's a two-parent household. So a nuclear family, a good example is The Cosby Show, My Wife and Kids, The Bernie Mac Show. That's an example of a nuclear family where there's not a single parent, but there's a two-parent dynamic that helps raise the kids. A two-parent household, that's what a nuclear family is.
That is not the way that article is describing using the nuclear family, because they go on to talk about how they want to normalize queer relationships and queer families. They're talking about the nuclear family in the sense that it's father, mother, and kids.
Parent household, and they want to dismantle that because they feel as though that society, especially America, has a westernized version of it. Can y'all explain to me what's so Western, aka white, what's so Western about a nuclear family? Why would they want to disrupt and dismantle it? It makes no sense. Did you guys know that at least 80% of people who are in prison right now for life, 80% of them are actually coming from a fatherless home? Black, white, Latino, Asian, Hispanic. All of them come from a fatherless home. Did you know that?
Yeah. And do you know why a lot of those homes are fatherless? It's because a lot of them were in jail. Because there is a systematic problem in this country that is incarcerating people in general massively and disproportionately incarcerating black people massively. That's a huge problem. Let's talk about criminal reform. Too bad there wasn't this massive movement that's trying to bring attention to the criminal justice reforms that we need, especially for the black community. Too bad there wasn't this worldwide movement that was trying to bring attention to this. It really sucks, doesn't it? That there's not this worldwide movement that's bringing attention to the criminal justice reform that's needed in this country that could help a lot of families not become single family households.
Majority of the gang members that are in Venezuela, that are in Honduras, that are in places like Ecuador and El Salvador, a lot of those people who are in gangs come from a fatherless household. Did you know that? Isn't it really interesting how they want to dismantle the nuclear family? But that's like one of the best things that could ever happen to people. Now, don't get it twisted. Not all nuclear families are good because some fathers are obviously trash or some mothers are obviously trash. But let me just say that 85% of you guys can honestly admit, a lot of you guys who grew up in single parent households can admit a lot of you guys had some underlying issues growing up because you didn't have two parents in your life. You can admit that. Because you
I would say something.
didn't have two parents in your life, or because you didn't have two good active participants in your life, or one good participant
Okay, I grew up
in your life, you can admit that you have issues. There's a reason why a lot of women date shitty men that abuse them, men that treat them like shit, men that just use them for sex. A lot of times, those are women who have daddy issues, and a lot of them can admit that. The same thing with men who go around disrespecting black women. The same thing with men.
Use them for sex. First of all, we need to destigmatize sex workers. This men just use them for sex. I don't know. He might not be referring to sex workers. He could be referring to quote unquote sluts. That needs to be destigmatized. Both of those things. Women having an active sex life is not a bad thing. Secondly, Secondly, a lot of the issues that come with growing up in a single parent household is usually due to economic issues, not being able to afford things in life that two incomes are being able to afford. Yes, and if it's not economic issues, it is just like with two parents, you're more likely to have a parent there that's going to be able to help you with homework. It's going to be able to give you life advice and such stuff like that. That's going to have time to spend time with you. But that can also come down to economic issues. If a single mother had the financial ability to work a part-time job instead of two jobs and take care of a family, she would have more time and energy to spend with her kids. And I haven't seen any studies on this, but I would wager that in that kind of scenario where a single mother is still able to spend time with their kids even without the father in the picture, you would end up with similar results when it comes to the success of their kids as you would with a two-parent household.
Men who go around disrespecting women in general, assaulting women, abusing women. A lot of them grew up around mothers who didn't teach them how to respect women, or grew up in a fatherless household where their father didn't show them a good example of how women should be treated. You see where I'm coming from here? Having a two-parent dynamic is one of the best things that can happen to people. But even if a father isn't in the home, your father should be in your life, even if he isn't in the home. But a lot of people don't have that luxury of having their father in their life and not having their father in their home. Imagine having your father in your life and not having the father in the home. That's a stressful thing. Anxiety right now, because I did not expect to ever make this video. The ad blue sign pops up in the tab, right? Y'all see this? Which it is, and if like the world's ran by misogyny, which it is. Now, one thing that's very interesting about the Black Lives Matter site is one of their goals is to disrupt the nuclear family. There's a reason why a lot of women date shitty men. I find it weird how they want to disrupt the nuclear family and they want to combine everyone, encouraging that. We should be encouraging women to make better choices than men, or men make better choices than women, so that we can come together as like a village. They want us to be like this little village that comes together and helps one another. Forgive me, but when Rick is doing the first, do you think black people about to come up and be like, oh, here's $100? That. The same thing with men who go around disrespecting black women. The same thing with men who go around disrespecting women in general, assaulting women, abusing women. A lot of them grew up around mothers who didn't teach them how to respect women, or grew up in a Western about a nuclear family. Why would they want to disrupt and dismantle it? It makes no sense. Did you guys know that at least 80% of people who are in prison right now you didn't have two parents in your life? You can admit that. Because you didn't have two parents in your life, or because you didn't have two good active participants in your life, or one good participant in your life, you can admit that you have issues. There's a reason why a lot of women date shitty men that abuse them, men that treat them like shit, men that just use them for sex. A lot of times those are women who have daddy issues, and a lot of them can admit that. The same thing with men who go around disrespecting black women. The same thing with men who go around disrespecting women in general, assaulting women, abusing women. A lot of them grew up around mothers who didn't teach them how to respect women, or grew up in a fatherless household where their father didn't show them a good example of how women should be treated.
Okay, so what about like lesbian parents? There's no father figure. Not necessarily. I mean, there could be one partner in the relationship that takes on more of a role of a father, but whether they're both feminine lesbians, is that going to be an issue? Is it going to be an issue that they don't have a father in their household to teach them how to treat women? What about homosexual men in their relationships? Can they not raise proper children because there's no woman to teach their kids how to treat a man? Yeah.
You see where I'm coming from here? Having a two-parent dynamic is one of the best things that can happen to people. But even if a father isn't in the home, your father should be in your life, even if he isn't in the home. But a lot of people don't have that luxury of having their father in their life and not having their father in their home. Imagine having your father in your life and not having the father in the home. That's a stressful thing. Financially, physically, and mentally, it's a struggle for children who don't have two parents in their life. It's just a struggle. You don't need two parents in your life to be successful, but it is a struggle. So let's just be real here that Black Lives Matter is a little bit corrupt and problematic. The organization, at least, is a little bit corrupt, because I find it weird how they want to disrupt the nuclear family and they want to combine everyone like a village. That's their goal. They want everyone to collectively be like a monolithic, uniformic family. They want all black people to come together as like a village. They want us to be like this little village that comes together and helps one another.
There is nothing wrong with wanting communities to support each other. We literally depend on communities coming together in order to survive in many situations. I've been dependent upon food pantry donations in my past. That is literally a community coming together and helping out people who can't afford food. There's nothing wrong with that.
Forgive me, but when Rick is doing the first, do you think black people about to come up and be like, oh, here's $100, I'll help you with your rent? No. When mothers watching this, when you need a babysitter for your child, do you think the black community is going to want to come together as a village and help you, take care of your child? No, they're not.
Yes, that would be great. If people needed babysitters and you were able to find somebody in your community to babysit, that would be fantastic.
Babysit your damn kid, and that's just the truth of it. They want to make everyone a monolithic village type group, when in reality that doesn't do anything for black people. No, we should be encouraging a nuclear family. We should be encouraging that. We should be encouraging women to make better choices than men, or men make better choices than women, so that we can have a nice.
Okay, so I would ask him here, why is it that we end up with single family households? And then they would answer that, and then I would ask why that, and then why that, and eventually it's going to come down to either you believe in a inherent genetic problem with the people who end up in these situations, or a socioeconomic problem. And Black Lives Matter is protesting in order to fix some of those socioeconomic problems.
Family structure. That's what we should be encouraging. We shouldn't be encouraging eradicated so that we were.
I mean, if you grow up in a community, picture this: you're a little girl. You grow up in a community, and in this community, it's very common for the people around you to be single parent families. High crime in this community. A lot of the fathers are getting locked up. So a lot of the mothers are single. Some of them are on drugs. How do you encourage this person to pick a quote-unquote good man when everyone around her is growing up in single-family households, growing up around crime, and is probably engaging in the crime themselves? Probably making this girl feel like she needs to engage in the crime in order to sustain herself, whether that be prostitution, dealing drugs, joining a gang, because of the lack of opportunity that's in this community. How do you tell her, oh, find a good man, when you grow up in a community that is pretty much nothing but people who are growing up in a community that's ridden by crime and people who you would say is not good men? How do you do that? She's going through issues herself that's shaping the way that she is. You've got to fix the community. You can't fix the person on an individual level without fixing the community that they're in. And in order to fix the community, you have to address socioeconomic problems that these communities have, which Republicans do not believe is an issue, do not believe in investing in. Democrats have not been investing in it, but at least they pretend to believe in it. And at least we can hold them accountable when they don't.
All family. No. That just didn't work, because if we can't, if for example, black men can't come together and stop disrespecting black women and acknowledge that there's an issue between, black men and black women, if they can't come together and do that, how the fuck do we expect all of us to come together as a village? You got black people who still think that only liking dark skins, only liking light skins is a preference. We can't even come together and have this conversation about colorism. When we're going to come together as a monolithic group and just collectively raise each other and uplift each other? There's a lot of things that are affecting the black community that is so beyond racism. Let me just tell you that the black community, we are our own worst enemy, period. There's a lot of things that we could do collectively to improve ourselves. Aaron McGregor said it the best. Aaron McGregor is the creator of Boondocks, and I love.
It's black culture that's the problem meme, to which I would go through the line of questioning of, well, why is black culture the way it is? Oh, well, it's because of black music. Well, why is black music the way it is? Oh, it's because of this. Well, why is this the way it is? Well, it's because of this. And eventually what you will get to is the person either has to choose whether it becomes a socioeconomic issue or a genetics issue. If you choose genetics, you are essentially saying that black people are genetically inferior to white people. If you choose socioeconomic, you have to admit that in order for these things to happen, it can't be just, oh, black people, fix yourself. It's got to be, we've got to address the socioeconomic issues that are affecting black communities in order for these things to change. You cannot just say black people do better. You've got to give them an environment in which they are able to do better, in which they are encouraged to do better. Black culture is a direct byproduct of the past socioeconomic situations of the black community as a whole. That is a direct byproduct of the explicit systematic oppression that was on the books and the American legal system. Segregation, not being allowed to vote. Black culture is a direct byproduct of those things. The relationship the black community has with the police, it's all a direct byproduct of those things. The problematic behaviors that you see anybody engage in is a byproduct of their surroundings. Most likely, there could be genetic problems with certain individuals, but as a whole, it does not seem to be a genetic situation. It is a socio-economic situation which has not been properly addressed yet. And until we properly address that situation, we are still going to see those problems.
Love him so much. He's fucking awesome. He said the best.
As much as we like to talk about white people, and as much as we can legitimately place responsibility for the creation of these social conditions on white people, there's still problems that we bring upon ourselves and that we can ultimately correct ourselves. We really do celebrate ignorance in the black community. We really do dislike each other. We really don't get along.
Black people support ignorance, and part of the ignorance that we support is the fact that we don't read shit. And Chris Rock said this the best: if you want to hide something from a black person, put it in the book. Why the fuck do we normalize sitting up here and not reading shit? Like, a lot of us are walking.
Look, as somebody who grew up in a white community and still sees what some of the white people I grew up with says, believe me, this isn't just a black community problem. This is a problem that spans amongst both the black and white community. Yeah.
Walking around with Black Lives Matter sign, Black Lives Matter t-shirts, and we don't even know that we're technically giving the organization free promo.
Hell, I don't even read. I'll read political stuff, but I don't read books.
But when celebrities are going around saying Black Lives Matter and posting links of Black Lives Matter to the site, because yes, most celebrities like Zendaya, celebrities like Anthony Anderson, Tracy Ellis Ross, all these celebrities from all these popular Netflix shows, they're reposting the Black Lives Matter link and redirecting to the Black Lives Matter site. And when you go there, you're donating, thinking that you're helping the black cause and you're helping invest in the black neighborhoods, but you're not. You're helping benefit the white Democratic campaigns. How does that do anything for the black community? We want to, I don't want to defund the police, but people want to defund the police.
Of the two parties, who has more black or just people of color in general, but black? It's still black representation. Who has more? Is it the Democrats or the Republicans? Because you can't say you're helping the white Democrats if the other party is more white. We live in a two-party system. So if the other party is more white, then the Democrats are not the white party. I believe that people of color need to be more represented in government, for sure. I wholeheartedly support that. I wouldn't support a candidate just because they're black. But if I had a choice between candidate X or candidate Y, and they have the exact same policies, but candidate X is black, I would probably choose candidate X just because I know that they're going to represent a minority group more so from a personal level, more so than candidate Y. Now, if their policies are ones that I disagree with, I'm going to choose candidate Y. Because at the end of the day, I don't actually play identity politics. I do believe more representation is needed, but I don't play identity politics.
Don't even realize that if we want to defund the police, the saying is we're going to redirect the funds into the black communities, but don't realize that we could be doing that for ourselves instead of donating all this money to Black Lives Matter.
We're going to it's not necessarily redistributing the funds into the black community. It's redistributing the funds into other programs that can help the police in dealing with things that we don't need a person with a gun to deal with. Things such as mental health issues, people who are having mental health breakdowns, people who are having bad trips, bad drug trips, a lot of domestic situations do not necessarily need a guy with a gun. Maybe a social worker or a counselor would be better suited for those roles. And you can have the police with them to make sure that things don't get out of hand, maybe sitting outside in the car for a quick response or something. But it's not redirecting the funds into the black community per se. It's redirecting the funds into other programs that are better suited to deal with the vast array of problems that the police are expected to deal with, which would definitely help the black community. Less black people would be getting shot, but it's not just police brutality isn't just a black problem. It's just more of a black problem than it is a white problem. So it would help the black community more so than the white communities.
The whole system is corrupt. That's why I'm not supporting Black Lives Matter anymore. I'm over it. I'm done. And it's counterproductive. It doesn't do anything for black people. It's not even our movement anymore. It's literally the white man political party, Democratic Party movement. That's their movement. They literally exploit the whole movement. Like, you got celebrities literally going on Democratic campaign shows saying, vote this, vote that. Billie Eilish was literally in a Democratic live show the other day saying how we should vote like our life depends on it. It's just like, it don't make no sense. Like, it's like they're exploiting our whole movement just to get votes from us. When meanwhile, Democrats can't even name one rule that they're going to implement to help get rid of police.
Yes, people who support Black Lives Matter should vote. For sure. Electoral politics is the number one way to get things changed. Vote in your local elections. Vote in your federal elections, your state elections, vote for your U.S. state's attorneys. Or if you can't vote directly for them, vote for somebody who's going to appoint somebody that you would support. You have to vote. And yes, Black Lives Matter wants you to vote for Democrats because Democrats are going to be more likely to represent the needs of the black community.
Brutality and help benefit our education system. Literally none of them. So we sit there voting for these people. And let me just be very clear that I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not nothing. I'm just me. I'm choice. That's who the fuck I am. Okay? Because I think with logistics,
I'm not a Democrat or Republican either. I hate that I have to choose between the Democrats and Republicans. But in order to be effective in the system that we have now, we have to choose between Democrats and Republicans. And we have to push for electoral change, changes in the system in which we elect our officials on a local level and let it expand to the federal level in order to get anything done. And right now, Democrats are the lesser of two evils, especially for the black community. So, yes, vote Democrat. That's just the way you gotta do right now. It sucks. It really, really sucks. I hate it. But it's the way it is.
I don't think with emotion. And that's what we need to normalize. We need to normalize thinking with logistics. Is police brutality a real issue? Absolutely, it's a real issue. But we cannot sit up here and act like this whole movement is what's going to benefit and make us be better people. We can't sit up here and act like anarchists, people burning shit down, fucking shit up, and going to ruin shit.
So, many of the Black Lives Matter protesters do not burn things down. They are not anarchists. They do not support those things. For every video you find of a unique situation of somebody burning things down within a Black Lives Matter protest, I can find you a Black Lives Matter person saying, "Stop burning shit down. You're making us look bad."
And what's interesting about a lot of this whole Black Lives Matter thing is the fact that it distracts us from the bigger issue. The bigger issue is the fact that we need to normalize having nuclear family. We need to normalize compliance in our community.
Having the nuclear family is normalized. What are you talking about? You can't expect... The bigger issue is that we need socioeconomic changes in the black community and in poor communities of all demographics. We need to be able to support these communities in much better ways than we have been. That's the bigger issues. I don't have the answers. I don't have many prescriptions for this. I just don't have the research behind me in order to prescribe solutions. I know that supporting businesses in those areas, locally owned businesses in those areas, is a good thing. That's about as far as I got. But I know that saying, "Do better, get nuclear family," black people, stop getting divorced, stop being bad. That doesn't work. It's not going to work. It's just, what? No.
And I completely understand that when it comes to police brutality, it's hard. Like, it's a struggle to see people who look like you being killed and shot by the police. But like I always say, compliance is key. You need to comply with law enforcement because that's literally the only way that you can beat the system. You need to comply. And if you feel like they did you wrong, you can...
While I agree that when you are engaged in a situation where you are dealing with law enforcement, you should comply. But not comply with law enforcement does not give law enforcement the right to shoot you. So, this whole line of argument that he is about to go into is irrelevant unless you believe that not complying with law enforcement gives them the right to shoot you.
sue the fuck out of them. You can sue their pants off. We gotta stop sitting up here normalizing bullshit like this. Like, Black Lives Matter is not my movement. It's not my movement. Like, I'm not supporting that no more. I'm not supporting all lives. I'm not supporting none of that. Okay, I'm just gonna support the individuals individually. So Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin. Let's see who else. Breonna Taylor, Bolton Jean.
Those individuals were victims of a systematic problem that needs to be fixed, which is why we need systematic solutions, which is why we have huge movements such as Black Lives Matter trying to call for those systematic solutions, because those problems have been present in this country for generations and they still have not been fixed.
All these people who were done unjustly, I'll support them as individuals. That's who I'm supporting. I'm not supporting no movement. I'm not subscribing to that. You can unsubscribe to me, say F you, fuck you, you ain't shit, you're cool to do that. Like, I don't give a fuck. Unsubscribe to me, unfollow me, I don't give a fuck. Okay, I don't give a fuck. What are the kids doing nowadays? Period, poo. But for real, I'm not subscribing to this movement because it's corrupt and it's full of shit now. It was good at first, but then it got to a point where it became about money. They're collecting millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars every fucking year, every time a black person dies. They're literally exploiting black death. And what are we doing? We promoting these people, giving this organization all our fucking money, when in reality, we should be creating our own damn movement. The whole movement is funded by a whole white man, George Soros. The whole movement is literally being benefited the most financially.
Oh man, hold on. He finally gave me a claim about George Soros I can look up. That claim comes from the fact, well, I don't even know if it's a fact, but the idea that the Soros-run Open Society Foundation is on record with giving Black Lives Matter $33 million this year alone. Open Society Foundation is a foundation that supports racial justice. They think that Black Lives Matter is fighting for racial justice. I don't see what's wrong with them giving money to Black Lives Matter if that's how they think that their money needs to be spent in order to accomplish the goal of racial justice. And I wouldn't necessarily say that George Soros is directly giving money to Black Lives Matter when it's his organization giving money to Black Lives Matter. That organization is not like dictated, at least I wouldn't imagine, is like George Soros isn't like the dictator of open whatever. At least I would imagine he's not. Maybe he is. Maybe he's just running these things behind the scenes and is putting money in all this stuff that is just trying to screw the black people over, but he's trying to say he's helping black people. I don't know what his theory is on this, but yeah.
My white politicians, they benefit financially the most from it. So how the fuck are we promoting this movement when in reality they benefiting the most from it? I'm literally pissed the fuck off because I literally feel played that I supported. I was for the cause. I was for,
The issue with giving money to charities that are going that help black communities is that charities alone cannot fix these socioeconomic problems that black communities see. They just can't. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at them. It's going to take the government to fix these problems. And that is why throwing money at politicians who are more likely to be on board to fix these problems is the way to go. Donate to charities too, for sure, 100%. They do some help, but they can't do it alone. It's going to take a governing body.
Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, like the power, woohoo, but I'm not doing this no more. This is just a way for Democrats to get more votes from us, and I'm not fucking with it. This is another way for Democrats to get more support. Like, this is like some evil plantation slavery shit. Like, this is what I would compare to systematic slavery, where they're not even telling us where our money is going. They're plotting off of our ignorance. And what's even worse is Black Lives Matter. Also, here's another example why I don't support the movement anymore. We have a habit of putting criminals on a pedestal. I'm gonna say it because I know nobody else will. People like Rayshard Brooks wasn't innocent. That man literally tried to grab a cop's taser, aimed it at the cop, and the cop shot him.
That man did grab a cop's taser, aim it at a cop, shot at him, and then try to run away. It was when he was trying to run away when he got shot. Maybe there would be an argument for if he got shot while he was discharging the taser. But the man was running away. That is not a reason to shoot somebody. The threat is running away. You're supposed to catch him. That's their job. Their job is not to execute him.
self-defense. Now, is it right that Rashad Brooks died? Absolutely not. Is a gun a good answer? Absolutely not. But why was Rashad Brooks drinking under the influence, and why did he...
Okay, so he agrees with me. Wait, he agrees with me. None of those things that he did justified the execution. Especially not at the time that the execution happened.
Grab a cop's taser, aimed it at the cop. There's literally video evidence and body cam footage that shows all of this. I watched the entire 2-hour body cam footage, and I can honestly admit that Rashad Brooks was in the wrong. That police officer, he wasn't...
Okay. All right. So, I'm so glad he brought this up. This is a very important point to make about racism. That cop did not have to be racist in order to perpetuate a racist system. The whole idea behind implicit racism and systematic racism is that you do not have to be consciously supportive of it in order to perpetuate it, and B, you don't have to explicitly be racist in order to perpetuate it. You don't have to be a part of KKK and also a cop in order to be a part of the systematic racism that is affecting black communities through the police force. What I mean by this is that so this is just a line of thought that serves as an example. It's not the only example. Black communities are more heavily, disproportionately policed. Black people are more likely to be harassed by police over simple issues, little issues. These are things that have been proven in studies. That is implicit biases and a system. All right, so the implicit bias that cops have when it comes to harassing black people, that's implicit bias, and the system that puts more cops in situations where they're going to engage with black people more often, that's a systematic oppression, makes it to where black people are more likely to end up in a situation to where they are going to get shot by the police unjustifiably or justifiably. It just makes black people more likely to get in that be in that situation. Whereas a white person may have been able to be drunk inside of a Wendy's parking lot in a white community and not have the same issues because maybe a cop may not have been called on him. And if he was called on him, maybe the cop might take a little bit longer to respond because there's not as many beat cops on that white community streets. I don't know. That's just a line of reason that serves as an example of how you do not have to be racist in order to perpetuate systematic racism.
Racist. None of that was racially motivated. It was a simple fact where Rashad Brooks was being violent. He was kicking these cops, punching their asses, and he took a lethal weapon and pointed at them. Can a gun beat a taser? Absolutely. But why do we sit up here and we put Rashad Brooks on murals? Why are we painting murals of Rashad Brooks? But what about all these other black women that are being shot and killed by other black men, being abused by other black people? More so, the fact that women of color, especially black women who live in disadvantaged communities, are more susceptible to human trafficking. And guess what? It takes for them having to die for people to care and trend their hashtag. Why the fuck do we sit up here and we glamorize criminals and paint murals of them? Why are we burning down Wendy's for Rashad Brooks? Why are we putting him on t-shirts? Why do we put people like Jacob Blake on t-shirts? Now, I don't want to be that guy. What happened to Jacob Blake was pretty messed up. He didn't really deserve that. But to be fair, the dude literally walked away as police were constantly asking him to stop. He kept walking as police...
What do you mean to be fair? That's not fair. It's not fair that you can get shot by the cops because you're walking away. What the hell do you mean by to be fair? What world is that fair?
He's asking to stop. If the police ask you to stop, you stop. And then dude literally reached in his car. And come to find out, the mainstream media is not going to tell you this, the dude had a whole knife in his car.
Yeah, he had a whole knife in his car that he was not reaching for. No, the reason why the cop shot him is because he was trying to arrest him. And he was walking away. The cop had no idea there was a knife in the car. What are you talking about? And even if he did have a knife in the car, shooting the guy is not the way to Oh my gosh, shooting Jacob Blake was not the way to settle that situation. If you were afraid of a knife in the car, you back away and you draw your weapon. And if he comes after you with a knife, then you can shoot him. If he comes after one of the other people around with the knife, then you can shoot him. There was plenty of space. You put space between you and the person with the knife. I was taught this as a prison guard. When you get into an altercation, your first line of defense is to put space in between you and the aggressor. That is the first thing you do. You try to get away. Now, of course, as a beat cop, you're not going to get away completely the same way a prison guard would, but you would put space in between you and the potential aggressor, and then if they come after you, that's when you shoot them. Jacob Blake had his kids in the car. You cared so much about that 8-year-old girl, and rightfully so. But you seem to not care, and maybe you might prove me wrong later on in this video, but you seem to not care about Jacob Blake's children who watched their father almost get executed by a cop for no reason. He had kids in his car. Do you honestly think that he was going to come after a cop with a knife while he had his kids in the car? No, he had a warrant out for his arrest. My thought was he was just trying to get away so that he wouldn't get arrested under that warrant.
He had his 2 kids in the back seat. Is it right that Jacob Blake got what he got? Hell no, that's not right. He didn't deserve that. But at the same time, why was he reaching in his car? See, I'm not doing this whole race baiting shit because
He was reaching in his car because he was trying to get away from the cop.
think with logistics. I don't think with my skin color. I don't think with emotion. Y'all know how I get down. I don't think with that whole, thinking with emotion. I don't let my blackness speak for me. I let this speak for me because this is what got me through life. And it's really irritating. It's making me really fucking emotional that we sit up here and glamorize people who actually did wrong things. Did you know that Jacob Blake is actually on trial right now for sexually abusing another black woman? The most unprotected people on the planet, black women. He's literally in trouble. He's literally being investigated right now for sexually abusing abusing a black woman. Jacob Blake is literally being investigated right now for trespassing and so many other things. But all the media wants to showcase.
This is the he's no angel argument. That doesn't justify him getting shot. Just because he's done bad things in the past doesn't justify him getting shot at that moment. The only time a cop should be shooting somebody is to protect themselves or others. And that was not a situation to where he was trying to protect himself or somebody else. Now, I don't doubt that maybe the cop felt like he was trying to protect himself. Maybe he felt threatened. In that case, he should not have been a cop if he could not make clearer decisions in such high tense situations, which we expect cops to be in, which we train cops for. If he can't handle that, he should not have been a cop.
Case and talk about is the fact that he was a white. He was eradicated. He's paralyzed from the waist down by a white man. White people did this. It's like it's an agenda to try to get rid of cops in our community. It's like they want to keep killing.
The reason why when a black man gets shot, the blackness is brought up. It doesn't matter if it's a black cop shooting him or a white cop shooting him. The race of the person who gets shot is brought up because it can be put. Because black people are systematically more likely to be shot. Therefore, it becomes relevant to that systematic oppression. Yes, white people get shot by the police unjustifiably too. It happens. But it happens at a disproportionate level for black people because of the systematic issues that black people have with the criminal justice system that I laid out earlier.
They want us to keep killing each other in our own community, so that way we keep voting Democrat, or that way we keep voting a certain way, or we keep, feeling helpless, and we keep looking for politicians to help us. No, we can help us. We can help each other. Why doesn't Black Lives Matter promote things like?
Wait, how do you have this we can help each other mentality, but then complain about the Black Lives Matter wanting communities to come together initiative? How do you simultaneously hold those two thoughts? I agree. You can, as black communities, there are things you could do to help each other. But you also need government intervention. You need the government to stop systematically oppressing you as a community. Like, it doesn't matter what the local communities do for each other. It doesn't matter what charities you donate to. If the government continues to systematically oppress black people through their criminal justice systems, then you're still not going to get out of the situation that you're in. You're not going to get rid of single family households because black men are going to continue getting locked up at a disproportionate rate than white people. And that's going to lead to economic issues for their kids, which is going to lead to more of those kids than white people's kids resorting to committing crimes in order to sustain themselves, which is going to lead to them getting locked up. You need government intervention and community support in order to solve this issue. It's not one or the other. It's both.
Like mental health care. Why don't they lead us to suicide hotlines? Why don't they take us to hotlines that'll like help us become better people? Why don't they teach us about financial stability? The best way.
It's so funny that you're talking about mental health and like suicide help and these mental health programs that like Black Lives Matter is talking about defund the police and fund programs like that. What? Yes.
To escape the plantation, the best way to free yourself from slavery, the best way to free your mind is wealth, generational wealth. JC said it the best. Financial freedom is
generational wealth, which was denied to the black community through laws that were on the book, redlining, and other means of discrimination. That disallowed the black community to build that generational wealth, and the black community has not been able to recover since.
It's our only hope. That's what it is. Go to school. If you want to go to school, start a business. Learn about your finances. Budget your money.
Go to school, but a lot of people in these communities don't have the basic needs in order to get to school. They don't have the basic needs in order. They go to school hungry. They don't have a parent in the house that's able to take care of them, help them with homework. And you can't just say go to school to these kids and expect them to just go to school when they're living in situations that no kid should be living in.
Build your credit. Buy a home. If you're a parent, save your money. Save your money. Build your credit. Build.
Save your money when there's no job opportunities for you. You're working through 2 minimum wage jobs. Where are you going to save? Most of these people don't have money to save. What the hell? Build your credit. How? You're living paycheck to paycheck. What are you talking about? I don't understand.
Build your reputation with your finances.
It's not middle class black people who are going to jail Okay. The idea of intersectionality is the idea that there are many different types of oppression that you can have on your life that can be related to one another or can be completely separate. What he's talking about now is financial privilege. The people that are able to do the things that he is talking about have a wealth privilege. They grow up and they are able to make money. They grow up in a community where they're able to make money. They were told by their parents that you can be anything you want. They were encouraged to do education. So they they have a privilege of wealth. Not everybody who has this privilege was born in it. Some people earned it. Yes, that happens. As a whole, there is this concept called stickiness at the ends, which means that if you're poor, you're more likely going to stay poor. And if you're rich, you're more likely going to stay rich. That's just the way it is in America. So, on a systematic level, poor people just don't get this privilege. And on a systematic level, if you're black, you're more likely to be poor. Therefore, black people are more likely to not have that privilege. Therefore, they're more likely to struggle financially. Therefore, education isn't what's on their mind. Survival is.
financial consultant, and guess what? Get a home loan. After you get a home loan, then make sure that you pay your mortgage on time. Then guess what? You have a home, and eventually when you're not here anymore, you can pass the home on to your kids. Like, we should be normalizing building ourselves up. You know, it's like, the thing is, what I notice is this: black people who aren't from America are thriving more than actual African Americans. Nigerian Americans.
Okay, man, he's just hitting on all of them. He is hitting on all the points. The reason why black people that are not from America are thriving more than black people who are from America is that usually if you are coming from Africa to America, you are already successful and rich. Same with Asians. The reason why Asians who are in America are usually more successful than black people, black Americans, is because when they come to America, they are usually already successful. You don't see poor Nigerians buying a plane ticket to come to America. You don't see poor Chinese or poor Vietnamese people buying plane tickets to come to America. It's usually the wealthy ones. So yes, you are correct. Black people who fly in from other black countries are usually more successful, which means that the black community's problems are not one of genetics. As some people on the Republican side, i.e. the extremes of the Republican side, but Republicans nonetheless, would say. It's not a genetic thing, it's a socio-economic thing created by the government, which can be solved by the government and communities.
Are fucking killing it right now. Caribbean Americans are killing it in education. But when it comes to African Americans, collectively, they feel as though that they have to look at white men, the politicians, to keep saving them and keep freeing them. And that's why black America isn't thriving as much as they should be thriving. You know what I'm saying? We have all these celebrities out here with all these resources, who have all this money in the world, and all these resources and opportunities to help build their communities. Like people like Snoop Dogg, Mayweather, people like T.I., all of them got all these opportunities to create restaurants. A lot of them have actually built businesses and have actually employed their own people. But a lot of times, a lot of them build their businesses, a lot of times they build their establishments outside of the hood. So we should be literally normalizing the fact that we should be trying to build generational wealth for one another. Why do we normalize the fact that why does Black Lives Matter promote the fact that we should be this monolithic, uniform group that comes together as a tribe and a village and we're all one family? No, we should be normalizing the fact that we all can be killing, eating together. Let's build together. Let's get this paper. Like, let's build together. Black Lives Matter is promoting the wrong message, and I can't get down with that. We promote the fact that if we see a 30-second clip of a white cop abusing a black person, we can take it out of context and assume, oh, racism, white supremacy. Everything ain't racism. Everything ain't white supremacy. It took me a while to realize that. It took me a while to break that mindset. But a lot of things really aren't racism. Anytime you see a clip or a headline of racism trending, please be sure to do your research and look into it. Read up about it. It makes no sense. Did y'all know that literally a couple weeks ago, a cop by the name of Officer Bohannon, yes, a upstanding black man who was married to a beautiful black queen, he was literally murdered by a white man who was resisting arrest. But of course, they're not going to talk about this because guess what? He was a black cop, and the guy that he was trying to arrest was a white civilian, a white criminal. But of course, that doesn't follow with the narrative. They want to make sure that we
A white criminal killing a cop is not news because you would expect a white criminal to kill a cop. Take the race out of it. Criminal kills cop. That's not surprising. You expect criminals to kill cops. You wouldn't expect cops to kill criminals who are not a threat to those cops. You're taking so much out of these situations when you compare the two. We hold our cops to a higher standard than our criminals. We should hold our cops to a higher standard than the criminals. That's why it's not news.
hate the police. They want to make sure that we keep killing each other. They want to make sure that we keep being brainwashed. They want to make sure that we keep going out here looting and burning our own neighborhood. So guess what? When we loot and burn our own neighborhood, it forces things like us wanting to vote for certain politicians because we feel like we need to be saved. It's an agenda. And that's why I don't support the Democrats, because like I've always said, I'll say it once, I'll say it again, Democrats are not for the black community. I'm not Republican, trust me, I'm definitely not I'm not with any of those parties because a lot of them are corrupt and evil. But Democrats are not for the black community. Democrats started the KKK. Yes, they started the KKK. Don't hit me with that whole, no.
Okay. Now he's going to the Democrats were the racist party, the party of slavery. That has so long changed. If you look at policies that both the Democrats and Republicans support on local, federal, state levels, Republicans disproportionately try to oppress black communities. The Republicans support voter ID laws, which disproportionately affects black communities. When they're closing down polls on a local level, they're usually closing them down for black communities. Oh, gosh. I'm not saying that the Democrats are good. The Democrats don't do a whole lot for the black community. I will agree with that. But of the two, they are the better option. And we live in a two-party system. And until then, I want to know what your prescription is. If you're not for Democrats, if you're not for Republicans, what are you for? Abstaining? What's that going to do? What is your prescription here?
It was a party switch. It was not a party switch. A few people switched parties. That's the real truth. The Democrats feed you that lie because they want you to keep voting for them. Democrats are the KKK. Democrats fought for Jim Crow laws. Democrats also instilled horrible laws that had mass incarcerated millions of black men and took away millions of black fathers out of black households. The 1974 crime bill is still...
That is true. But before that, Richard Nixon's, I think it was his campaign advisor, said the phrase, and I am paraphrasing because I can't do it verbatim off the top of my head. We can't make being against the war illegal, and we can't make being black illegal. But we can make smoking weed and doing crack and associating those drugs to the anti-war left and the black community to disrupt those communities. Republicans did the same shit, much more egregiously. I think that a lot of the Democrats that voted for the 93 crime bill, 74 crime bill, I'm not sure. 74 crime bill was a Republican thing, wasn't it? I believe a Republican was in office then. Okay, he meant 94 crime bill. There's nothing on here about 74 crime bill. The 94 crime bill, the Democrats that voted for that was voting for that not for racial reasons, but because crime was a problem and they thought that tough on crime was popular, which it was back then. The ACLU, I believe it's called, supported that bill because it was a problem for the black community also. They didn't know that it was going to have such a detrimental impact to the black community. Tough on crime bills at the time were popular and were not seen as detrimental to the black community. We know this now. And any Democrat that doesn't recognize this is a problem for sure. But the other option is the Law and Order party. What the fuck do you think they're going to do?
Affecting so many black families to this day. You got the fact that the Democrats literally wanted to keep Jim Crow laws. They wanted states to be segregated. The reason why there's so many cities where blacks are on this side, whites are on this side is because of Democrats. Like, they're not for black people. And in my personal opinion, before I close off, I want to say this. If black people really want to free themselves and black people really want their votes to be prioritized and they really want to see change, this is what we need to do. Black people, listen the fuck up. Black people, withhold your votes. Tell them straight up, like, Democrats, we ain't voting for y'all.
Do you know what withholding your votes ends up making it happen? Do you know what happens when you withhold your votes? Republicans win. The fuck are you talking about, withhold your votes? Republicans win when you do that. Okay. You vote for Democrats, but it doesn't end there. You vote for Democrats and you hold their feet to the fire. And then when a more progressive Democrat comes along and primaries the current Democrat that's not doing shit for you, you vote for that progressive Democrat. Don't vote for the establishment Democrat because some fucking other establishment politicians that you supported him. Okay, your frustration for the black community blindly supporting Democrats is not ill-founded. I had the same frustration during the both 2016 and 2020 Democratic primary. Because in both primaries, the black community supported do-nothing Democrats instead of an independent who admittedly voted for the 94 crime bill but has since said that it was an awful idea and it was detrimental to the black community. They voted for the Democrats who have been doing nothing for the black community all this time. You need to vote for the Democrats that are running against the Republican to stop the Republicans from getting in. But then you need to vote for somebody who is primarying that Democrat that's going to do the things that you want them to do. And if there's nobody on the ticket, then somebody needs to run. That is the solution. The solution is not to withhold your votes, because that means that Republicans win. And when Republicans win, they do things like gerrymander, which disproportionately affects black people. It gives them less of a voice, which is going to make it harder for you to get somebody into office that's going to do what you need them to do in the future. They do things like stack the Supreme Court with Republicans, which could end up upholding egregiously racist gerrymandering that Republicans partake in. So you need to vote for Democrats in the general election. But you need to primary the hell out of the do-nothing Democrats. And you need to vote for the primary challengers of the do-nothing Democrats. Get Nancy Pelosi the fuck out of there. Holy shit. Get her out. Replace her with more AOCs and Ilhan Omars. And what was that new girl? Corey something. Okay. I'm done with this one.
Unless y'all give us exactly what the fuck we want and we have it in writing that y'all want to do this shit, unless you give us exactly what the fuck we want, we ain't voting for y'all. We all withholding our votes. Matter of fact, we voting for independent. That's what we voting for. We voting for the Green Party. We're not voting for y'all motherfuckers, because guess what? Black people, we got this magic. We have power. So where we say, look, if we ain't voting for y'all, unless y'all give us what the fuck we want. We don't even value our own votes. We had this whole fucking creepy ass nigga, Joe Biden, literally tell us if we don't vote for him, then we ain't black.
So if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. And you ain't black.
And you got black people defending him saying, oh, well, Joe Biden said what he said, period. How shameful is that? Kanye said it the best. We should find the fact that Joe Biden even said that to us very revealing, and how they see us. They don't even value us because we don't even value ourselves or our votes. Black people, y'all don't even collectively like each other. African Americans can't even get along with Caribbean Americans. Caribbean Americans can't even get along with Africans from actual Africa who are raised in Africa. Like, it just don't make no sense. Like, we don't even like each other. We compare ourselves based on nationalities. We compare ourselves based on skin tones, nose shape, hair type. We tear down black women. We tear down darker skinned girls, call them monkeys, tell them that they burnt, that they ugly. It just don't make no sense. Like, we need to collectively have very serious conversations that go beyond white supremacy. White supremacy is a real thing. Racism is a real thing. Police brutality is a real thing. But we need to have legit conversations. The reason why so many black people are being killed at a disproportionate rate, the reason why we're so over-policed like we say we are, is the fact that we literally normalize ignorance. We normalize, oh wait, a white cop just killed a black man, now we're gonna burn and loot shit up.
The reason why you're over-policed is because a lot of the crimes that a lot of crimes that people do in general are the direct result of socioeconomic issues. It's not because the culture that glorifies criminality that you attribute to the black community, that comes from socioeconomic issues. Gangster rap comes from people in the black communities feeling that the only way that they're going to be able to protect themselves and make a living is by joining a gang. And the music that came from that became a part of a culture that you attribute to the black community. I'm exhausted. And just stuff like that, it all boils down to socioeconomic problems that need to be solved.
We normalize that kind of stuff. That's not okay to normalize that kind of shit. Black people need to collectively have serious conversations. Why is it that we're over-policed? Why? We say we're over-policed, and that's why a lot of us are being locked up. But why are we over-policed? Why are we over-policed? Oh, it's racism? Not necessarily. The reason why we're over-policed is because a lot of us are going down the wrong path, and a lot of us are committing most of the crimes. Statistically, black people commit...
And why are you doing that? Why are black people as a community doing that? You have to answer that question. Unless you think it's just because they're genetically prone to do it, you have to answer the question why in order to come up with a solution.
Majority of the homicidal crimes, majority of the violent crime, a lot of it is done.
And most of that's due to gang violence. 1350. He's touching on 1350. 13% of the population commit 50% of the violent crimes. Well, most of that's due to gang violence because black community is more likely to be part of gangs, make up more of the gang violence than most other communities. And yeah, a lot of the homicides is due to gang violence, which usually is a survival thing within that community.
Done within our community. We gotta have this serious conversation. The reason why we're so over-policed is the fact that we don't even respect one another. Black people, you see someone that's black, they don't...
Do better, black people.
It doesn't matter to another black man who's willing to kill people and lose it all. That don't even matter to other black people. Shit, white people kill each other too. But the fact that we kill each other, and we want respect, and we want to be treated with respect, and we want to end white supremacy for good, we're not going to end the fact that we can change. We're not going to end the fact that we dealing with all this oppression. The fact that we got to see our brothers and sisters dying when we literally out here ignoring news articles. For example, y'all didn't hear about that Dion K situation where that black man who was literally out here toting guns on Facebook, toting guns on Instagram, was literally out here running up on a cop. Yeah, this guy Dion K that DC literally burnt and looted shit up for.
What have you done?
I have no comment on this. I have no idea about this situation. It probably didn't make news because if he actually ran up on a cop with a gun and he got shot, that's what you would expect to happen.
Actively! I'm fucking tired! I suffer fucking depression on this shit that y'all put me through and my city through. Right. Y'all have caused fucking turmoil for all of us.
I wonder if this guy made a video of those people, the lockdown protesters yelling in cops' faces because they couldn't get a haircut. I wonder if he made a video about that. I doubt it, and even if he didn't, that's probably just because he didn't care about that. It's not fair for me to point that out.
And I'm fucking mad! Where is the Federal Bureau of Investigation? We do not harvest murderers!
This is still a peaceful protest. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. It's a peaceful protest. What they're protesting, the straw that broke the camel back, may not have been like the most ideal thing to like have you go off on like that, but they're still protesting. It sounds like police brutality against the black community and or general communities also, and they're doing it peacefully right now.
We are sick of this racist pandemic 2020! Turn him in! Turn the murderer in!
He literally ran up on a cop. The body cam footage came out 2 days ago, and guess what? DC is looking real stupid right now because they saw a white cop kill a quote-unquote innocent black man who literally ran up on a cop from behind. And we're supposed to just sit up here and just act like this is normal, like this is some agenda?
It is not unreasonable for people to automatically assume that when a cop kills a black man, that it was unjustifiably. Because that's what's been happening.
I feel like there's a higher power controlling us. I feel like this is above black people. I feel like we're being used, manipulated, and controlled, and I'm not feeling it, and I'm not for it. Black people, normalize generational wealth. Normalize uplifting your black children. Uplift your black children. Tell your black children that their skin tone does not stop them from anything. You can conquer anything. Tell your black daughters, look, you're beautiful. Your skin glows like the sunset. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. You want to be a doctor? You can do. You want to be a singer? You can do it. You want to start? You listening to this right now? You want to start your hair salon? You want to start your hair business? You can do it. You want to start doing hair and get paid for it? Go get you a book on business manufacturing and marketing. You can do it. You can start your business. You want to start a YouTube channel? Go ahead. You can do it. I believe in you because I know someone out there is not telling you that you can do what you want to do. But I'm telling you right now, if you're listening to this, you can do it. You want to get some mental health help? You can do it. You want to become a better person? You want to leave that toxic relationship? You want to leave your toxic friends behind? You want to get over your anxiety? You can do it. Strive to be a better person. Stop falling for this.
On an individual, okay. So, this kind of individual-based solutions that people have. This happens in like the minimum wage debate and stuff like that. You know, it basically says on an individual level, you can do better. That is great advice for somebody on an individual level. That is not a great way to tackle systematic problems. You cannot tell an individual who is being affected by systematic issues to do better and just expect every single individual that you tell to do that to do it. It's just not the way it goes. Some will. Some will do better. Some will get out of the situation that they're in and go on to live a dignified, non-criminal life. But you cannot expect that to happen on a large scale without addressing the systematic issues.
Whole movement stuff. I feel like you have to belong to this movement just because you're black. No, being individual and support individuals who have been done wrongfully. You don't need no movement, and I don't need no movement. I'm pissed the fuck off that I've just been getting played. I've been donating my money to these damn people, this organization, just for them to be hands to Democrats. Meanwhile, Democrats haven't done shit for black people for the past 25, 30 years. They've been running our cities for the past 35 years, 40 years. The hell we got from it? Nothing. Nothing. Literally nothing. They fought for civil rights. They probably fought for, even though they were against civil rights, they fought for civil rights when it was trendy. But other than that, what are they doing for us? Our schools are still fucked up. Our schools are shitty. You guys ever notice how majority of the schools, majority of the fucked up cities that are predominantly Latino and black are ran by Democrats? Very interesting, right? So please don't fall for.
The majority of cities, period, are run by Democrats.
Please do your research. If you see a race-based title, don't believe it.
What would a Republican do differently that would help those schools? That is my question to you.
Trying to save anyone that's listening to this, but of course some people gonna miss the message and say, oh, F you, fuck you, you're stupid, you're this, you don't listen. Listen, goodbye, because I don't want no one subscribing to me if you only subscribe to me just because I tell you what you want to hear. No, I tell you what you need to hear. Black people, we have a lot of work to do, and it's way above racism and aka white supremacy and KKK. I'm tired of all this damn pandering. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of Democrats. I'm tired of all these damn celebrities pandering to us. I'm tired of seeing white liberals bow down to their knees about white privilege. Oh my God, I vow to use my white privilege to defend black. I'm tired of it. I want to see some solution.
Wait, do you not believe in white privilege? He didn't actually say that, so I'm not going to get into it, but...
I want to see some fucking change. I want to see our schools being equally funded. I want to see the fact that we're uplifting each other for our features and our phenotypes. I want to see unity, positivity, uplifting each other. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see no more of this whole burn down, looting shit and saying, yup, go ahead, burn down, loot it down. Oh, I'm sorry, even though 15 people...
I don't want to see any more burning down and looting either. It's not politically effective, electorally effective. It's hurting the cause more than it is helping. If it helped the cause, then maybe... I still wouldn't be for burning down and looting small businesses, but the looting of Targets and Walmarts and shit like that is also hurting the cause, and I don't want to see it anymore.
People worked at that Wendy's, even though 15 black people worked at that Winn-Dixie, even though 15 black people worked at that Walmart that y'all looted and burnt down, it's okay, burn it down, because at the end of the day, they got insurance, burn it down. Oh, sorry, barbershop, black-owned barbershop, oh, black-owned restaurant, burn it down, who cares? Nah, fuck that. Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. That's all I had to say on that. Hope you guys really enjoyed this podcast. I said a lot. I said a lot.
All right, well, there's my response to that video. It was a long one. Holy shit.